Welcome to the Rebel Rebel. I'm your host, Michael Dargie. The Rebel Rebel is a show dedicated to creative rebels and entrepreneurs all over the world. It's a love letter to those people who think audaciously and act courageously in service of making the world a better and more interesting place. Thank you to Make More Creative for helping produce this show and sharing it across the world. We are in 75 countries now. 75. We are growing. Thank you so very much. Thank you for liking, sharing, subscribing, doing all this stuff. It helps us more than you know. Hey, if you're a creative rebel with a story to tell or you know one, head on over to the RebelRebelPodcast.com, fill out the guest request form. Who knows? You might be the next guest on our show. We'd love to hear from you. And while you're there, why don't you head on over to the shop and pick up some of our great merch? We've got these amazing shirts. Look, there's an amazing shirt right there. And we got coffee cups. You don't even have to put coffee in it. You can put tea in it. You can put milk in it. You can dunk a cookie. You can grow a plant. You can put whiskey. I don't know. Who knows what you're going to do? You're a rebel. I'm not the boss of you. Now, if you'd like to help the show in other ways, you can always sponsor us. You can advertise on the show. Send us a note to studio@therebelrebelpodcast.com. In this episode, you'll meet Dr. Michael Gerharz from Cologne, Germany. Michael helps people all over the world find the right words to tell their irresistible story. The right words make all the difference, and he turns ambitious leaders into transformative communicators. This episode is so packed with knowledge bombs. You've got the recording, you're listening to it, but I'd grab a notepad if I were you, and I'd write some stuff down because this is going to change the way you communicate, I promise. Please welcome to the Rebel Rebel, Dr. Michael Gerharz. Across the world for me in Cologne, Germany, I have Dr. Michael Gerharz. Michael, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing so good. It's a sunny day in Canada and life is good. It's winter. I can't complain. Hey,
very good.
What are things like over there for you?
Well, we're not so sunny at the moment. We're in deep autumn weather here.
Right. Awesome. So, Michael, if I could, just to, my introduction is not going to do you justice. It's better to hear it right from the horse's mouth, as they say. Could you give us just a really brief introduction about what it is that you're up to right now? Like, what does Michael Gerharz do right now?
Yeah, I'm helping people find the right words so that it can make a bigger impact. I'm writing a daily blog and publishing a podcast, but I'm also working with C-suite and entrepreneurs and their teams to get their story across and get people to see what they see. That's amazing. I went to your website, and we'll put all the links in the show notes, but it's michaelgerharz.com.
And I mean, I was immediately taken by you when we looked at having you on the show because you care about words like deeply. And I think that so few people do these days. It's just so much noise out there. And I think if I'm reading all this stuff correctly, that actually fewer words is better.
I wouldn't necessarily say that it's better every time or even for everyone. Okay. But I try to be respectful of and mindful of people's time, right? Yeah. So one quote that really resonated with me very early on was by journalist Wolf Schneider, who said something along the lines of, someone's got to suffer, either the reader or the writer. And way too often it's the reader, right? And I tend to think that, it pays if you work a little harder so that your audience, even if it's just like a conversation like we're having right now, so that your audience has to work a little less, right?
I love it. Oh, that's so great. I suffer as a writer, so my readers don't.
Yeah.
That's lovely. So how did you get mixed up into this crazy world of words? I mean, you're a doctor of words, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, well, I'm a doctor of communication systems, and that's the funny part of the story because, it sounds like I've made my doctorate thinking about words, but it's actually about words that computers exchange because communication systems is a field of computer science, and my PhD is actually in mobile communications. and I've thought about how kind of mobile devices can form stable networks.
Right.
But that was kind of the initiation for my journey to become, well, a communications coach in the meaning that I embody it today, because I was kind of frustrated, well, not kind of, really frustrated about the amount of ideas that had been thrown into a trash bin back in the days when I heard about them in meetings, in conferences, because they weren't communicated properly. Because, I mean, there was brilliant men or women standing in front of us speaking about a brilliant idea, but even in a room full of experts, no one got where she went, what it was about. So what's the point here, really? So clearly the suffering was on the audience's side in those occasions. And I thought that was, well, a pity, right? Because I mean, these ideas deserve to make an impact. And so I wouldn't want to, I didn't want to settle with that. And so I started reading blogs and writing my own blog. And then some clients reached out after having read that blog, and that's how my journey started. Right.
So if I could, and I'm daring to go here because I don't know the story, but if I were to go even further back, is there anything that sort of I don't know made you this way? Like, what is it about you that took you here? I mean, I understand the frustration being in meetings and ideas going by the wayside, but where does that come from?
I think there is. There are maybe a couple of occasions, but one thing I think is particularly impactful. I mean, and it goes back to school, right? During school, actually, language, in my case, German, because I'm German, wasn't actually my favorite topic. So in middle school, I kind of disliked it. Even so in high school, I found my love for literature too. But I think that a much bigger impact was through my physics teacher. Because when we started high school, or the German equivalent of high school, actually, he made us an offer in basically the first lesson that we had with him, and he offered us to hand him in for every topic that we covered, hand him in a written write up of the topic, and he would go through that meticulously, reading for accuracy, but also for style and readability. And as you'd expect, not many took that offer and took him for his word. But well, he meant what he said, and there were like three pupils, including me, who took the offer. I was the only one doing it for every single one, and he really kept his promise. He went through that, and I think that was really instrumental in teaching me to really try to find accurate words that are readable at the same time, to really care for how you phrase words. And that was really helpful for the exam. So when I did the final exam, and the principal of the school handed us the records. He even said that my physics teacher had tears in his eyes when reading through my final exam, and that of course made me proud. And I think that was really a door that opened up the world for me to appreciate that through the words you use, you can make a difference.
Wow, that's amazing. I love that. Do you want to give a shout out to that teacher? Do you recall his name or her name?
Yeah, I'm happy to. Danne was his name, Mr. Danne. He unfortunately passed away a few years back. So that was sad news for me. But it was.
That is sad. But I do love that he left a mark, and what a legacy to leave.
He did, yeah. And it was not only writing. His lessons were really brilliant. Actually, it felt like half of the time we spoke about other things, despite physics. Like most of the time, it felt like this is a philosophy class, and we loved it. We we stuck to his lips when he started speaking, because, well, it seemed, often it felt that he was just sharing wisdom that will be beneficial for us, not only in physics but beyond that, just for our lives.
Wow, that's incredible. When did you first get this idea to I guess start this blog as part of your business journey?
I think actually I can give credit here too, because I was influenced at that time by Gar Reynolds, that business professor who works in Japan, and writes or wrote back then the Presentation that Zen blog, which he also turned into a book which had quite an impact on the world of presentations. And to me, reading that blog was kind of a revelation, because I was only exposed at that time to these kind of boring, typical PowerPoint presentations, which give you the impression that, well, we're talking serious stuff here, so please leave your fun at home and just, well, get through this, because that's how it's done. And the way that Gar Reynolds spoke about that was so different from that world. And it didn't feel like this is just gimmick, but it's really profound, that you can make a difference when you actually care for people getting what you want to tell them. That when you, well, to get back to that original quote that we started with, when you do a little bit suffering to find the simplicity in the topic, so that it's easier for your audience to get you, that, well, you can make an impact with your idea, and people actually enjoy listening to your presentation. Right. And when they enjoy it, they will actually, probably after the talk, they will get to you in the coffee break and want to have a conversation with you around that.
Unreal. That is so great. And I guess, if I look at your day-to-day today, how rewarding is that to help people sort of find that clarity?
Well, I'm not sure whether I should say that publicly, but actually I would be, if anyone throws like something like, I have a story here and to tell, but I struggle to find the words, I'd basically do it without compensation, because I just love helping you with that. And the best moment is always the moment when, well, in a lot of situations, even for myself, when you start out to craft a speech or a talk or any piece of communication for that matter, it can often feel intimidating, right? You have that internally, you have that clear vision of what you want to bring across, but the moment you start to get it on paper or on the screen, things start to get a little fuzzy, and then you even with the tools that you use, you find yourself like kind of amidst the chaos. But then we go through that and we just sort it out, and we just, well, we just try to find out, so what's really the point here, if there's and we try to look from the audience's eyes, so why would they listen to you for like 20 minutes, and what makes them curious about that, and where's the meat here, and then suddenly, not probably first it's probably rather slowly, things start to shift a little bit into place, but then there's that sudden moment where everything suddenly seems to make sense, where chaos turns into order and confusion turns into clarity. And, well, the moment that my clients then see that internally in their mind's eyes, they can't help but put that smile on their face. And that's really a rewarding moment for me, that seeing how they are proud of themselves, how they see how what they felt was brilliant now is obviously and explicitly brilliant in front of their eyes.
Wow. Oh, that's amazing. Wow. Thank you. I went on a journey there and could see the chaos and, how it changes and, what happens. I do a lot of presentations myself, and I understand that world of like, it's just so messy. And as soon as you get clarity, if you have somebody on your side fighting for simplicity along with you and telling you that it's okay to simplify and to because really you want to be memorable, right? Like that's the
Yeah.
goal. Like you said earlier, is that, you want the people to show up at the coffee break and want to talk to you and engage with you on that
Yeah,
subject.
I mean, the thing is, you're not giving the presentation for yourself. You know everything already, right? You're giving it for someone, and so it makes sense to look from their perspective.
Yeah. Isn't that funny that most people don't? Like, and I use most people, I throw that out there. I mean, I don't have any data to suggest that most people do,
Yeah,
but I think that a lot of people do that. They're maybe even just terrified of being, on stage giving a presentation in the first place, let alone making an impact. So I think that your
yeah,
perspective helps.
yeah. True.
Amazing. Um, what other types of communications do you help with?
Well, basically, it's whenever you have kind of a story to tell that you are deeply passionate about, but you somehow struggle to find the words, and that could be like you're supposed to give a keynote at a conference, or you're supposed to speak to the newly merged companies, and well, set the right tone for the merged workforce, or you're about to launch a new product and you struggle to find the right angle and for the announcement, or probably even for kind of the landing page that you're building there, or you've got that new strategy, right? That's one of my favorite topics, really. I mean, how many great visionaries are out there? So it's often that's often kind of a given that you have that towering vision, and you might even have that brilliant strategy, and that well that is very elaborate and that tells everyone exactly what to do. The problem only is that it's buried into this large pile of documents that sits somewhere in the drawer that
Yeah.
nobody ever reads, and no one really knows how to put into practice, right? And then really finding the words that help your team make sense of that, because ultimately i I tend to think that strategy is actually a really simple thing, because ultimately strategy is about making choices, how to make the right choices. And if that's the case, then the task of communicating your strategy is making that visible, making it plain and simple for your team to understand how to make choices. And if the moment that you do that and that you achieve that, kind of the sky's the limit, right?
Right.
Because you can start trusting them with making the decisions, the choices. You don't have to be the bottleneck anymore. If you can tell the story of your strategy in such a plain and simple way that everyone on your team understands and knows how to make the
Yeah.
choices, then you can trust them with making the choices kind of on behalf of the team. Um, and well, you can somehow make much more and much easier choices, and then well, make a bigger impact.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So do you teach people how to find those moments themselves, or do you write that for them? Like, what does that process look like, or does it change from person to person?
Well, I usually don't do it for you. I do it with you.
Okay, yeah.
Um, so I'm not telling you what words to use. I'm kind of pulling the words out of you.
Right.
So or helping you discover those, uncover
Yeah.
those. So I'm my job is basically asking questions. So I won't stop asking you questions until you feel it, that you've hit that moment of clarity.
Right.
Um, and that means that ultimately it's your words, and they have ever been inside of you. We're just letting them out.
Right.
Um, and that's the process that I use when I work with you directly. I do have a course on my website that you can go through. It's called the Crack the Clarity Code, where I walk you through the process that I use myself, and teach you a little bit about what actually is the essence of clarity. So what does it mean when something is clear,
Yeah.
and how can you work towards that, and how can you make it work for your story that you're trying to get across. So that's then self-paced learning, and where kind of reveal the secret that I'm using, which is not a secret at all. But when I work with you one-on-one, face-to-face, then it's with you.
Amazing. Gosh. So the self-paced thing, and I'm sorry, I think you said it was free.
No, it isn't. It's not exact. It's cheap.
Okay, sorry.
I'd say it's $29.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
well, it's not. It's not.
Yeah.
free.
Okay. I just double checking because I thought that's what you said, but I wasn't sure. So, and it's, I mean, my God, that sounds so worth it. And I mean, I do, but I don't mean to shill for my guests on the show, but I'm so enthralled by what you do, and, fighting for words is important to me. And I do love this idea of the words are inside me and you're just helping me find them, because that's the other thing, is that if you give somebody a script that you've written, and you give it to somebody else, it's not in their voice. It's not, there's no emotional connection to that.
Exactly. And that's one of the keys to dealing with what you mentioned earlier, that a lot of people feel nervous and stressed on a stage. And in large parts, that's because they are, in a way, forced to use words that they don't feel comfortable with. It starts with that PowerPoint format, which is not the way that we speak with our friends or in any other situation. It's just not the way that we are used to speaking. So we are forced into that format. And then we listen to our colleagues who encourage us to use this more formal, more seriously sounding language, which is also not the way that we speak. And so that leads us to, adding to the stress that the environment and the space that we're in exposes us to anyway, and that only adds to that discomfort, because it's not what we are used to. So and our body amplifies that insecurity, this uncomfortable feeling. So, and I tend to think that the best way to deal with this is to work on the words that you use there. Because if you use words that you truly believe in, about the things that you deeply care about, then we're talking a very different story here. Then you're in home turf. Then you're in the realm of your passion. Like that's the thing that you want to make a difference on. And then your body wants to do the right thing in that. If you can let that passion shine through, all you need to do is let your body do it and amplify that. And that's a much easier task than kind of looking for all those rules that some body language, not to dismiss their work. It's a very important work, and it has great impact if you do it correctly and in the right manner. But if you start from the wrong starting point, right? The words that you use are the problem here. Then if you would have to look for your hands, what the hands do, where you're looking, how you stand, how you walk, that only adds to the stress and it amplifies the situation.
And so some sort of, sorry, go ahead.
No.
I was going to say some sort of dissonance as well. So if you're all worried about, making sure that you do the right move at the right time, as you punctuate a point, we notice that as the audience. We know that there's something not quite right, and we're missing some truth.
Yeah, just look at these awful TV series that you watch on television. These people are educated actors, right? They've been through years of training and practice, and still they're not so good that we would buy into their role.
Sure.
There's only so many good actors there, and there's no way that you tell me that you go through a body language workshop for a weekend and then you would convince your audience that you're super confident when in fact you're not. So that's just not, we're just not good at that. While on the other side, we're very good at perceiving, just as you mentioned, perceiving those kind of dissonances that there's something slightly off, although probably most of them wouldn't be able to pinpoint what exactly it is that's off. But we have a very good sense for that something's off.
Yeah. Well, and that takes away the power of the message, because if I'm busy not believing the message that I'm hearing, even though it's like it's real, but if there's that,
Yeah.
that's so cool. What? So your podcast is going into season 2. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's called Irresistible Communication. And
Mm-hmm.
are you still following the same format? It's 2 minutes, 2 minutes twice a week.
It is.
And that, okay,
Yeah.
which is so cool, because it's something that you can just listen to, in a heartbeat. You pop it in and you get nuggets. I love this. So what's coming up in season 2?
Well, we're going to continue on the journey of just so my goal is actually to get you thinking, to give you a pause on one specific area of your communication. So I'm not giving you kind of all the rules or telling you what to do. I want you to reflect on what you're doing, or direct your attention to one specific aspect that could help you in your next communication, in the piece that you're writing today, probably the LinkedIn post that you're preparing, or the meeting conversation that you're having, the negotiation, or even the keynote presentation that you're preparing, to give you a pause and get you thinking about one specific thing that you could do differently. And my goal is to make that as concise and consistent as possible, because I thought that we have enough long form podcasts out there. Even in the communication domain, there's plenty of great communications podcasts out there, but not quite enough that give you that brief insight that could probably just change your path just the slightest
just
bit.
that little tweak that you need.
Yeah.
Do you have a hard time coming up with these 2-minute chunks, these 2-minute pieces?
Not really, because because I'm also writing that daily blog, and that means that I'm constantly kind of assembling ideas, and a lot of the ideas that I speak about in the podcasts are drawn from the blog. So things that I write about in my blog then turn into podcast episodes. It's kind of the best of the blog, if you want to look at it that way. And then I turn it into those pieces.
What's your?
But of course, I mean, I can foresee the next question, right? Because how do I get the ideas for the blog, right? And that's just going through the world with open eyes, I guess. So whenever I see something interesting when reading a book, when interacting, like on this podcast or on a post on social media, or when working with my clients, I try to pay attention to the things that give myself a pause, and then
do you
think about that a little deeper and turn that into blog posts.
Do you have a notebook, or do you like, how do you capture these ideas? Because that's
I do. I used to have a paper notebook, but actually I've transitioned to a digital notebook, which is very, very simple and basic. It's just a bunch of kind of tabs, or I think it's actually called papers in the program that I'm using. And sheets, it's called, just a bunch of sheets, and where I just write in plain text, often just a quote or a very short text that reminds me of a situation, and then I will kind of go through those occasionally, and the things that pop out to me, I try to elaborate. And sometimes that leads nowhere, but other times it turns into the next blog post.
Do you ever get worried that you don't have enough content?
I used to, but I'm not anymore. I'm doing that for 3 years now. I mean, I'm blogging for 15 years, but I switched to daily like 3 years ago. And I was worried whether that would be sustainable, but I'm not anymore. There's enough things out there that are worth talking about.
How many words do you try to hit, or do you not count words?
I don't care. It tends to be on the shorter side. Some of them only have like 30 words or so. but there's also pieces like that have like 500 words. I don't care how many words I use. I care to make a point. And I try to use as few words as possible to make the point, but not less.
Gotcha. And just because I have to ask, do you edit yourself ruthlessly, or is it now just a natural flow for you?
No, it isn't. Not at all. I edit heavily. I write and then I go through that a couple of times until I think that that's exactly what I want to communicate and exactly the way I want it to communicate.
Wow. How much time do you dedicate a day to this exercise?
Um, I'm actually writing in batches. I'm writing
Uh,
once a week for the whole week, and
oh,
that's about what it takes. So I'm taking I'm mostly setting back the time. It doesn't work out that way every time due to client work or other obligations, but I'm trying to set aside one day of the week, and I will do the complete writing and podcast recording and stuff like that on one day in one sitting, and then that's the week.
wow. And do you use a service to help put those out, like later or something like that?
Yeah, I do.
Nice. Can you share which one it is for people who are
It's
curious?
it's it's Publer, PUBLER.io.
Awesome. Okay, good to know. Thank you. What's next for you?
I'm writing a book, and I'm hoping it to come out like early next year, and I'm pretty excited about that.
Do you have a title for it yet, or is it a work in progress?
I I have a working title. It's the path to strategic impact, and it has to do with what we spoke about earlier in how to communicate strategy so that it makes the impact that you want it to make, that the impact that all the work that you put into crafting that strategy deserves.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Okay, so we can. Do you have a? I guess people can just follow you on your website. Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, there's
If you're curious
LinkedIn
about
and
when it comes out, yeah,
amazing.
just head over to my website, and I'm on LinkedIn and Instagram. Just feel free to connect. I'm always happy
Awesome.
to see what other people are up to.
Oh, that's great. So we'll put all those links in the show notes. So as you're listening to this, just make sure you go there and click on it and make those connections because they're so worthwhile. And honestly, I love your flow. I really do, Michael. And it's like, and I said this earlier, and I'm not just blowing sunshine, here. I like the fact that you care enough to make it easy for me to communicate that your value proposition, if you want to go there, is clear to me that that's what you're going to, help me do, which is awesome. And, yeah, I'm taken by the fact that you were so deeply impacted by teachers. Um, because sometimes we don't often, I don't hear that enough, I guess, or I don't hear that a lot, that it's, there's those seminal moments, or the people in your life that, make that deep impact, and teachers do
Mhm.
such a great job of that when it hits and it leaves a mark. And that then takes you to us and then out into the world. Like the impact
Yeah.
that one teacher made is huge
Mhm.
if you think about it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Hmm.
Absolutely. And you're right about that. We tend to complain a lot about school and teachers, and um, kind of take the good work that they are doing for granted,
Yeah.
and we just go over that. But it's worthwhile to appreciate the moments that made an impact, and also the persons that made an impact on you during that time.
Yeah, absolutely. What's on your bookshelf? What do you read?
Um, I'm a very broad reader. I'm interested in a lot of topics. Currently, I'm reading actually To Kill a Mockingbird,
Right on.
um, which I always wanted to read but never got to because, well, in Germany we have our own history of great literature.
Yeah.
One of my favorite authors is a Swiss author, Friedrich Dürrenmatt, who wrote one of my favorite books of all time, The Physicist. Um, which is to me a breathtaking take on. Well, the core premise of that book is that a thought that has been thought cannot be taken back, and so once it's out there, it's out there. And the book was about the atomic bomb, but it's relevant still to that day. I mean, we have AI today, right, which could apply the same thought to. And another favorite of mine is Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Douglas Adams,
which continues to amaze me with I mean, how it's I do still find it so timely that this is such a hilarious conclusion that, well, we have that pivotal moment where we finally get the answer to the ultimate question about the life, the universe, and everything. And when we have it, we find out that no one ever bothered to ask what the question really is. So, and that is so timely, isn't it? I mean, everyone's got an opinion and on everything and answers to everything, but we somehow miss to get on the same page on what's the question that we're speaking about here, that we're discussing anyway. So
I love it. Yeah. And he has such a lovely turn of phrase as well, like how he writes and how he thinks, and his description. I'm trying to think whether he's talking about spaceships, but they're talking about how they hung in the air exactly the way that bricks don't. It's like, oh, just lovely. That's great. Wow. Okay, those are some great books. Thank you for that. Do you what do you do for you? Like, what's your guilty pleasure? The thing that you just do for Michael?
Guitar. Playing the guitar.
Really? Lovely. Yeah. And what style do you play?
I'm again broadly oriented there. It's most of it boils down to some flavor of blues, but going into either direction, rock or jazz oriented. So somewhere in that realm, in between rock and jazz, there's the blues as the root of everything, and then there's fusion as the crossover of everything. So that's my home turf.
And do you play live?
I only play live, but for myself.
Okay.
Yeah.
I see what you did there.
This is actually the one pleasure that I have, where I believe that I'm pretty good at playing.
Yeah.
So I know my way around the fret there, but I just do it for pleasure. There's nothing to prove here to anyone.
Yeah.
And it's just, well, what I want to play when I want it to play, and when I don't feel like it, it's purely a hobby.
Oh, that's great. Do you have any aspirations to play in front of an audience one day, or is that just not even on the radar?
I wouldn't call it aspiration. Well, as I said, that's just, well, I mean, that was the origin of the question. What am I doing for myself? And that I'm just doing for myself. Yeah. But I have no problem with imagining playing in front of an audience or standing on a stage. Well, that I would certainly enjoy, but well, it's not something that I'm actively working towards.
Gotcha. Okay, it's late fall. You're living in this beautiful world, Cologne, Germany, and I don't know the geography. I'm going to assume there's a river, maybe, and a pathway.
Yeah. Okay. It's actually, Cologne is actually famous for that. It's the River Rhine.
Okay. Look at us go. All right. So you're walking down this beautiful fall day, autumn day, beside the River Rhine. Maybe it's early in the morning. I don't know when you do your best walking, but inside of your head is this thought that is just like, oh, I just wish the world knew something. What is that one thing that you just wish the world knew?
Yeah. I mean, I'm saying that often enough, so the world should know by now. But let me just repeat that.
Sure.
Well, it's not about being right; it's about getting it right.
It's not about being right; it's about getting it right.
Mm-hmm.
Can you unpack that for us?
Yeah, I mean, how often are we in conversations? How often are we concerned with being right, with defending our ideas, with defending our own brilliance? Or even defending our status because we somehow feel others as a threat to that. But who cares about who's right in that moment when it's all about us together getting things right, figuring out the best solution, no matter whose idea it was, whether it's been a child or a grandma, whether it's been the CEO or the intern. We just don't care, and the world couldn't care less about all the ideas that didn't see the day of light because of a status fight in some internal company meeting. We care about ideas seeing the day of light, and as soon as we figure that out, it's not about being right anymore. It's about getting it right, and hearing the voices that matter because they have something important to say, and not due to who they are.
Wow, that's outstanding. Thank you. That's big. That's
Thanks.
a big thing. So you're welcome, world, from Michael. Holy shit, that was awesome. I don't think we hear that enough. It doesn't matter where it comes from, as long as we get it right. Outstanding. Along that same line, and I know that you've given us a lot of nuggets and a lot of wisdom during the time that we've had just this last 40 minutes, give or take. And by the way, time flies when you're having fun. And I thank you so much for the time that you've given us. You're very generous. There's these people in the world that are maybe it's a CEO about to do a presentation, or maybe it's a entrepreneur about to go out into the world, or maybe it's somebody looking for venture capital, whatever that happens to be. It doesn't have to be about words or communication. What advice would you give them from where you've been and where you're headed? What's something that would help us?
Step off the hero's pedestal.
Oh.
It's not about you, it's about your audience. They are not showing up to cheer for you, they want you to cheer for them.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Excellent. Do you have anything else you'd like to tag on to that? You don't have to, because that was perfect just the way it was.
Yeah, I mean, that's actually one of my favorite topics, right? When we're about to tell the world about the brilliance of our idea, we're so concerned with ourselves. We're so concerned with turning the spotlight on ourselves, so that everyone appreciates, first of all, the brilliance of our idea, and then the struggle we went through, and how hard it's been, and what an effort we've made. When no one could, when the world couldn't care less about that,
right.
because it's not about you. It's about how the idea that you're putting out there will have an impact on the people that you're trying to impact. And the astonishing thing here is that it turns out that when you switch that perspective, and when you start seeing people and hearing them, so you give them the feeling of being seen and heard, that's the moment when they start looking over. When they see that here's someone who's got an idea that solves the exact struggle that I'm into right at this moment.
Yeah.
So she's feeling me, he's feeling me.
Yeah.
That's when they start looking over.
Wow.
And so when you take that perspective, you're not the hero of the show anymore. You're the mentor. You're helping them achieve great things. And that's why they'll listen to you. Not because you try to brag, but because you've made a profound difference in their life.
Yeah. Outstanding. We help companies find, shape, and share their stories. So outside of this podcast, that's what our company does. And one of the things that we've noticed, kind of our sweet spot is that we notice what's called a we to you ratio, which is the amount of times that the company talks about themselves versus the amount of times they talk through their
Mhm.
customer's voice.
Mhm.
And we can measure that. Like you can quickly see, like if you go to any website that's just like, and we do this and we do that, and our belief is this, and
Yeah.
we're really great at that. And like, how many times do your eyes roll back in your head and you just like, I just don't give a shit. Like,
Yeah.
but if
Exactly.
you flip that script, like you just said, and now you're talking about it in from the customer's point of view, well, then the customer wants to engage because they feel seen and heard. I love this because it's one of those immutable laws of communication and humanity is that,
Mhm.
as much as I love you and I do, it's about me. you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Oh,
Yeah, that's the thing. Everyone in the audience already has a hero, and that's themselves,
yeah.
right? They don't need another hero.
Yeah. Oh, Michael, this is so good. Um, are you, I have no clue where this is going to go, if anywhere, but do you have any pets?
We have a dog,
What kind of dog?
um, some dog.
Okay. Some kind of dog.
So
What, and this is just such a weird question. I've never asked this before, but what has your dog taught you?
good question. So what I love about the dog is they're shuffling. They're shuffling themselves. So whenever there's a stressful situation, they will just quickly after, as soon as they are out of the situation, they will just shuffle, and that puts away the stress. And I wish that I had that skill, that I could just shuffle my arms or shuffle my head or something, and the stress would fall away, and I would be immediately calm again, and be content and at myself
Amazing.
centered. That's amazing about dogs.
I love it. If you could like turn on the show, like, and I'm talking specifically about our show, the Rebel Rebel, and you could hear a guest on the show, what would be who would be somebody that you'd like to hear their story?
It would probably be helpful someone that I don't know yet, because
Okay, that's cool.
so I would really love. I mean, I'm not sure how good your access to people is, but I would sure love to hear Pat Metheny's story. He's one of the most famous jazz guitarists out there, and he's just so crazy about his practice and so meticulous in getting every note right where it needs to be, that it blows your mind. He's there's this story about his childhood, that he was so focused on playing the guitar that he couldn't keep up with school anymore. That his parents would stow away the guitar, and he would just continue playing the guitar just in his mind, just
Wow.
in the air, and so it wouldn't keep, even being removed from the instrument wouldn't keep him from practicing. And I would love to know a bit more about that story.
I will see what I can do. Just just so you people know, I'm going to put the calls out. So expect your phone to ring.
Yeah.
Amazing. Michael, thank you so very much for taking the time with us today. I really, really appreciate it.
It's been a pleasure.
Likewise. Until next time. Thank you so much for listening. I've been your host, Michael Dargie, and this has been the Rebel Rebel Podcast. It's a podcast for creative rebels and entrepreneurs all over the world. And hey, if you're a rebel or you know a rebel, why don't you head on over to the RebelRebelPodcast.com and fill out our guest request